Welcome back to the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Kirsten Co, a New York-based founder, operator, startup advisor, and venture scout. As the founder of K Company LLC, her firm advises seed to Series A founders in emerging technology companies. She helps early-stage companies win and keep enterprise customers through commercialization, strategic partnerships, customer growth, and scaling from founder-led execution to institutional adoption. She also actively scouts for VC firms and high innovation early stage companies across physical AI, infrastructure, cybersecurity, and enterprise software. Kirsten, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a great introduction.
You have a very impressive bio to read from, and have done so many wonderful things in your career. And so that's really where I'd love to start, is to have you share more with our listeners about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, are you ready for it? It's a long career. Yeah, so my career started 15 years ago. I started in CPG. I worked for the Coca-Cola Company for 7 years. I've done massive transformation in different industries or in different verticals. I did HR operations back in Asia. And then I also did procurement transformation and change management very, very early on in my career, in my 20s, which is a big feat for, if I can imagine, oh my God, that was so long ago and I was so young. I couldn't imagine how I did that. Yeah, I started out in Asia and then moved up to Atlanta as well, in the US. And I was the first expatriate from that kind of region to do some transformation work, and it was a great experience overall. But after being in CPG and doing a lot of operational transformational work, I decided that it was about time to kind of take a break. As a high achieving type A personality that I am, and I admit, I've gone down a bit. I've notched down a bit after that. I was kind of not burned out, but looking for greener pastures. So I packed my bags, left my job, cushy job, and traveled to Australia and did my MBA.
Wow.
So I did that for about 2 years. And did some business development consulting there in a small boutique firm. And decided after that that I wanted to venture into emerging technology and startup world in the Philippines, back where I'm from, because I was born and raised there, with the intent of moving into Singapore. So this is the third country now. I moved to Singapore, and I stayed there for 7 years, where
Mhm.
I did a lot of work in startups, e-commerce, AI-based SaaS, travel technology, you name it. In the height of COVID, I was in travel tech. So you can just imagine the pressure that me and the CEO had to do just to keep the business afloat. So
Mhm.
I went through that kind of struggle as well. And then after those 7 years in Singapore, I said to myself, hey, you know what? It's time for another break. So I said, the work was really interesting. I really loved going to different places, and the work that I did in Asia allowed me to travel a lot, meeting customers in Europe and the US. I had a lot of customers in New York, and then one day I looked up in the sky, no joke. I looked up in the sky. I was in New York, in Midtown New York, and said, I'm going to move here. Lo and behold, 4 months later, I packed my bags again and moved to New York. So
No
that's kind of how
way.
I did. Yeah, that's how I did it. And then I said, I'm going to do my second master's just because I like learning and I want to pivot again, yet again, second time in my 15-year career. So that led me to a master's in global security and cyber crime in
Mhm.
NYU, which I just finished last week. So I just
Yay!
graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All the while building up my business, which I've always wanted to do because I didn't want to be stuck in a 9 to 5 anymore, and I want to challenge myself. And I think at this point in my life, I wanted to be my own boss
Mhm.
and kind of find my own voice and my brand. But I still wanted to be working in the startup ecosystem. So that's how I came to be K and Co, which is actually my name,
Yeah.
Kirsten Company. just because people have been teasing me all my life that my name is a company, or they're just confused if I was a company or it's my last name. It is my last name, guys, and it is also my company now. So that made it. Um, yeah, so I just started branding myself and figuring out, okay, I want to go into tech sales, specifically enterprise, because that's where I'm good at. And I work
Mhm.
with a lot of startups, and also doing VC scouting because that's how I get to learn about the different founders at early stages. And I love doing that. I love doing the events, talking to VCs, and kind of that's how this all progressed. So
Oh, I love it. And I feel like all the different journeys and points that you've been on throughout your career happen for a reason because they all led you to this point, I feel like, in one way or another. And so it's so awesome to hear what you're working on now with having your own company and being your own boss.
yeah, it's not an easy thing, let me tell you, but you have to have that kind of grit to
Mhm.
be able to do this. I'm still not at the point that I want to be in, but every day is a new day, is what I believe. And there's always opportunity to grow.
Oh, 100%. And before we get into your role as a venture scout, I'd love to dive more into what you offer as advisory services through K Company. Like, would love to hear exactly how you support founders and startups with your services and your expertise.
Yeah, for sure. So I work again with startups, usually C to Series A or B. I don't discriminate. As long as the founder needs extra set of hands and they don't have yet the budget to
Hmm.
kind of hire somebody full time, and they need that first 2 to 3 customers, the big enterprise sales, that is very, very hard to reach and very, very hard to figure because sales cycles for enterprise is longer than a basic lead generation or lead generated customer,
Hmm.
right? I don't want to say something bad about all these AI automated GTM tools right now, and I won't because they have their own place. But if you really want to catch on enterprise, there's a lot of different things that you have to go through. When you have to sell a product, especially all these like new technologies that are coming up right now, you have to go through procurement, you have to go to legal, security, just to be able to even do a pilot at an enterprise. And you have to know the right people, understand the stakeholders, understand the dynamics. So I'm the type of person that can help a startup figure that out, especially if they've
Hmm.
never done that before. Um, or they are in the process of raising and they can't keep up with their current customer base because they need to focus on the next big raise. So to keep the company afloat. So that's where I specifically come in. And I found as well that I'm very good at advising international based founders that are wanting to move here into the US, just because culturally I've traversed that part of the world across the seas. And there's a lot of cultural nuances that occur when you're doing business in the US, specifically, and even dealing with customers and enterprises.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like the unique thing that I offer them.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the part about AI GTM platforms that of course there's a time and a place for them, but really what's needed is just the relationships, having that human who's there to, like you said, know the ins and outs, the nuances, be the person who kind of steers the ship and moves things forward. And that of course is really where you step in and shine and support those startups through that process.
Yes. At least that's what I think I'm good at. That's why I'm like milking it,
Yeah.
right?
It's true though. It's like that's the one thing that I feel like AI can't replicate is just that the human relationship factor. I mean, that has always been an important part of business is feeling like you can know, like, and trust the person that you're doing business with. And so having that confidant really is so crucial.
Agree. And I don't discount AI at all. It has helped me
Mhm.
immensely in productivity, even in my studies, really. But that's a different story. Yes. So I'm just saying there's a time and place for technology, and who drives technology anyway?
Yeah.
People, right? Without
Yeah.
us, how do we steer the wheel? Unless they're autonomous and they have their own minds, which we also create, which we also program, right? How we put that human in the loop. We hear that all the time, human in the loop, right? So I
Yes.
may be your human in your business loop, so to
Hmm.
speak. Yeah.
Definitely. And so this question is a little bit more broad for you, but for someone who's listening to this episode, say that they're a founder and they're looking to get enterprise customers? Like, what really is that first step that they should take?
Look at your own network. Who do you know inside? That is the very first thing I would do. Apart from the ICP, figuring out, assuming that you already figured out that this is the industry that I belong to, this is the niche, these are the people that I want to target. Who do you know inside the company? Because it
Yeah.
starts with that. Even look, if you don't know anyone, you would know someone. You have second level LinkedIn connections. Your family might know someone, your friend might know someone, and it's just by word of mouth. And then you have to just try to get in through that. And when you do get that meeting or you do get that coffee chat or that email, that is the first way in.
Mhm.
That is your champion. And assuming that person likes your product or thinks it's valuable for the company that they're representing. So that is my first advice. Find somebody internally to champion you. And then
Mhm.
we can navigate from there.
Yeah. And so that makes me wonder, is in your experience, is enterprise sales like a long process? Is it something that people kind of really need to stay consistent with and stay on top of and work on kind of nurturing that? Or does it tend to have a shorter timeline? And that might even depend on the industry and the company.
Generally speaking, 90% of the time, and I also look at surveys as well, and based on my own experience working in enterprise and working for and selling products to enterprises, it's a very long sales cycle, 9 to 11
Mhm.
months. Just because if it's an AI product specifically, there's a lot of concern about AI in
Yeah.
enterprises. Not only the switching costs of different technologies, it's also being able to make sure that it's secure within the assets that they're protecting. You
Hmm.
also have to think about what their risk tolerance is. And these are some of the questions that I tend to ask. What's their risk tolerance to these types of technologies? What other technologies are they exploring? That's why, unlike SaaS, AI products, and I can hone in on AI products,
Hmm.
require pilots most of the time, just because big enterprises don't want to invest that much money yet until they've proven the point. So it's not really about stickiness. It's about how can we convert you to a longer term contract in the end if we like you that much. Because
Hmm.
every day there's a new product coming out, and every day people get scared because I don't know, there's too many now. It's just the first way in. And then if
Yeah.
you really solve a problem, and I've proven this because I've sat in a room of buyers, especially in this age, like a week ago, I've sat in a room of C-suites. And once they said, we would always have the budget if you're solving the right problem for us. I can throw budget. Budget is not a problem,
Yeah.
right? If you're solving a high level problem that we haven't really kind of explored yet, or we haven't determined if you wanted to build in-house, then you're in. Then I can look at the demo.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I feel like too, once a company or startup does end up landing that enterprise customer, now it's like, okay, now you have to focus on retaining them and keeping them. And I feel like with any company, that retaining clients or customers is almost more important than getting them in the first place. Because it's like you can get all these customers at the door, but if you can't find a way to make them want to stay and not have all of that turnover, that's a problem. And so I know that's one thing you focus on as well is just helping with that retention. And so, what's some advice we'd give around that for startups who, once they land their first big enterprise customer and they want to make sure that they keep them and don't lose them? What have you found works?
Feedback and more of a consultative approach as well, listening to things and real problems that they're facing,
Hmm.
solving bottlenecks in the process during that engagement, and giving valuable insight and input.
Hmm.
For instance, if you're an e-commerce company or e-commerce AI native company or infrastructure company, you want to sell into an enterprise, ask them what's working. How is that value being converted? Are you reaching your ROI of what you expect?
Hmm.
Also, trying to figure out if this is worth their while, their satisfaction, and if they have any issues to report it.
Yeah.
And sometimes big enterprises, depending on how much the contract is or the pilot is, how valuable they seem for this startup, you would even have a team if you have to kind of fix the bugs right away. Because
Right.
as important as it is to maintain the relationship, it's also as important to fix the issues that come along. that
Hmm.
engagement.
Definitely. And I think that's crucial is like if there's a problem, nipping it in the bud immediately and getting to what caused it in the first place and making sure that you have that satisfied customer because that would be something that probably make them want to leave as if they're not feeling happy or confident in the services that you're providing them.
Agree. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
always been the case.
definitely. And so what are some trends that you see happening in the work that you're doing? If there's anything that you see coming out of working with these startups to get enterprise customers or anything that you're noticing lately throughout these past few months?
There is so many founders that want to solve so many niche products in industry.
Hmm.
So specifically for enterprise, they are very much overwhelmed
Yeah.
with everything. And at the customer side, what they also say is that, we don't want a one size fits all solution, even
Mhm.
for one department. We prefer it to be fragmented just because I don't want that risk of one of my workflows going down and everything goes down with it. So
Hmm.
as much as you can see an one size fits all solution, unfortunately, that's not what they like, even if it's within a department, right? And that also goes to show with how VC funds things. I've noticed you have to be in a specific vertical, specific niche, just for them to help support you, to be able to fund you. At least for the most of the VCs that we've spoken to, they prefer for you to fit into a singular industry and then work your way through that and prove your point in that vertical. Of course, it can go horizontal, but it's easier to prove your case deep enough to be able to say, okay, this industry is good to go. I need to go sell to a different vertical now. So, or
Hmm.
go horizontal, so to speak. So that's the trends that I've been seeing. And most of the industries that are not in AI or not in tech still feel that AI is in its early stages. But
Hmm.
for founders that are deeply immersed in it and people that are deeply immersed in it, it's natural for them. They feel like we're already advanced. So there is like this gap between the different people and the different people working different industries, AI native, tech native versus not,
Hmm.
of the sense of how this technology is moving.
Yeah, and that's a really actually a really interesting thing that you brought up is just like the gap and almost the disconnect and I guess perspective that these two different groups of people have. And I think it's almost like refreshing too to kind of like take a step back and think about how there might be those different viewpoints.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's why sometimes if I'm overwhelmed, I just go to my restaurateur friends that owns a restaurant or my fashion designer friends that does not use any form of AI in their design and just look at the human process again,
Hmm.
like being in
I
part of
know.
it. Yeah.
I know. It's like I almost sometimes think about, I'm like, I almost wish sometimes we could go back to the days where AI wasn't so prevalent in taking over every conversation. But
Hmm.
as you mentioned earlier, AI has done a lot for us. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword of which way do we
Yeah.
really want to go?
Yeah. And then use it to your advantage, right? If you feel
Mhm.
overwhelmed, just step away. And if you don't want it, just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's your life to live. It's how you use the tools, not make them use you, right? Don't let it take it over
Yes.
you. So,
Yeah. Love the way that you phrase that. And
mhm.
now I'd love to hear about your role as a venture scout, because that's something that I believe has been relatively new for you. And so I'm curious to hear what inspired you to follow this path and where it's taken you along the way.
Well, to be frank with you, it came up naturally just because I'm looking for clients.
Yeah.
And said, I talk to so many of these founders and I hear so many of these use cases. Some of them don't necessarily want to work with me yet or not yet ready.
Hmm.
So one of the value adds that I give them is just to introduce them to capital because this is the first thing on their mind. Unfortunately, this
Yeah.
is part of how they live now, right? Some of them still have the job and do this on the side, but some of them, they've left completely whatever cushy or comfortable life they've been living just to, you know, put everything into this startup.
Hmm.
So with that, the least I can do is funnel them through an investor that wants it. right? That wants to look at new technology, that is their job to find these new things. So being a VC, apart from the business side of it, is also very rewarding for me because I'm always on the lookout for what's new. I don't want to be left behind. I FOMO
Yeah.
a lot. And it also allows me to experiment with the tools, right?
Yeah.
That they're using and then a beta. Like, who doesn't want a free thing, right? To use. And yeah, and just if that works out, to give them funding and then to see their product either dissolve into thin air after 5 years or make it, I'll just be happy.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that introductory phase, and then helping out and giving value. And I know for a salesperson that doesn't seem legit, but that's true, at least for me. I
Totally.
really value that. I really value that. If I can't get any business from you, if you can't get any use of me for now, at least what I can do for you is get you some funding
Yeah.
and to see like how your product can grow, right? Because we never know.
So true. And so I'm curious what your day or what your role looks like as a venture scout, like the types. I know that you introduce founders and startups to capital, but what are the typical tasks or duties that you tend to perform with this?
I attend, first of all, my process.
Mhm.
Attend a lot of events. New York has like a lot of events, and a lot of customer operator industry events as well, apart from the founder investor events. That's how I get to talk to people because that's how I get to know what's landing in the ecosystem and how everything works. I also learn from them in their journey.
Mhm.
Now, I wouldn't say something like I would never be a founder of a product myself. Eventually, I might, but I'm not ready. And I'll
Yeah.
be honest with it, I'd rather work around them than be one. Although you can argue, I'm a founder of my own service agency, right?
Mhm.
So that's a different thing, but this is also a different world. So what I do is I attend a lot of events, I meet a lot of people, and if they fit into the venture that I know of, I'm actually a venture scout formally for Level Up, but I also know a lot of other VCs on the side.
Mhm.
So I tend to just feed them these startups. Um, so that's kind of how I go about my day. And I use a lot of like technology a lot too. I don't know if you've heard of Bordy. I like Bordy. I've made so many friends on Bordy. And I've met so many founders on that app as well. So I kind of spread my wings, but I
Mhm.
like the in-person events pretty much.
Yeah, and I think you really worded it so nicely is that in-person events are the way to go. And I feel like especially like going back to the AI thing, I feel like lately over the past probably 6 months or a year or so, I feel like people are craving more in-person stuff because of all of the AI generated content that we see on the internet and AI this and AI that. It's kind of nice to just see a person face to face. And again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this interview, just the value in building human relationships, that's where that happens, is at the events like the events that you tend to go to during the week. It's just really being able to see someone in person and have genuine conversations.
Agree, totally. Like the
Hmm.
best conversations, even though if it doesn't amount to anything or business or whatever, it's just lifelong friendships that I've done. Like now I can call them,
Hmm.
say, let's have coffee. I'm stressed out. Let's
Yeah.
get a drink. I'm stressed out. Why not?
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm curious if you, from what you can share, if there's been any startups and founders that you've come across that you've been able to make that really solid connection to capital and that you've been able to see them have some success with it afterwards.
Yeah. So I have how do you say it? I have matched some of the founders to some VCs.
Hmm.
Some of them are in the process of being awarded capital because I just started um, pretty early.
Yeah.
But a VC scout not only introduces people to ventures, they also have the responsibility to make sure that the startup gets what they are promised with from the VC. So
Hmm.
it's your responsibility doesn't end with just the introduction and them talking or them being awarded. It's also seeing them through the process to get through that actual. funding.
Hmm.
So that's my commitment, at least to everybody that I have, you know, funneled in through a VC.
Yeah. And I think that's really remarkable because it's not you just making the introduction and then being like, oh, that's it. Good luck.
No,
Like you're there for the support and the process and making sure that they get what they're looking for.
yeah, and then you also have to know some form of knowledge in term sheets, what VC language is. So I also do a lot of that due diligence myself
Hmm.
before I funnel them, right?
Yeah.
There comes to a point where some startups even ask me to sign an NDA on their side because they want to protect their IP and they want to make sure that their stuff reach the right VC, which is
Hmm.
totally fair for me, right? Because I come with all good intention and want them to get the funding.
Definitely. And so being in this role of like being the super connector of connecting startups and founders to VCs, what advice would you give to a founder who is looking to get capital? Like just from what you've learned and what you've experienced and how you've supported people, are there any tips that you could give them for being successful with their funding?
Number one, understand what your product you are selling,
Mhm.
and also work your connections. Not going to sugarcoat it. Connections is everything, especially in early stages. Also, your profile means everything. So if you're going to look for a co-founder, make sure they have good credentials,
Mhm.
apart from you trusting them or those kinds of things. And in looking for funding, just talk to a lot of VCs, research on the verticals and the VCs that have funded similar products like yours and find a way in. Go to events if it's possible. If not, find somebody in that neighborhood because I know New York and San Francisco are very hot with these things. So find somebody in those cities if you can't be in them. If you're from a less known state, a less a less known state for that kind of this kind of ecosystem, there's always ways.
Mhm.
Sometimes it may even work in your favor because there are limited VCs in your area, right? But if you need like wider net, bigger names, San Francisco and New York City for sure. Find somebody in those cities if you can't travel to them, if you're that type of founder, and make sure that they can make the connection for you.
Mhm. Yeah, I think really, I mean, just coming down to it, having the right connections, combing through your network, seeing where you can tie those dots together, really can do so much.
And by the way, alumni, where you graduated, if you did,
Yes.
alumni are very helpful. Even past professors are very helpful
Hmm.
because they're still within that industry. And actually, academia is such a undervalued asset because I feel like everybody's equal there. And then they're not competing against each other. So people are more helpful. I
Hmm.
think, especially when they know you came from their school, there's also pride there. So,
Yeah.
having said that, because I just graduated, so I'm like working my alumni muscle here.
Definitely,
So, yeah.
definitely. And for anyone who's looking to get into venture scouting, I would love to hear advice you could give for that. I chat with a lot of people who are in the tech ecosystem, whether they're a builder or whether they're a founder who then eventually want to shift gears and go into venture. Like, what have you learned just from your own journey of getting into it?
So first, how I got into it, I learned about, I knew I was getting good at networking and I knew I
Mhm.
like founders. And one of the key things was they wanted capital. So honestly, I just chat GPT'd like what it means to be a connector in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then Venture Scout came up. It's like, oh, so who are the, venture capital firms that work this type of industry? And then I got a bunch of names and applied. And, I'm just a lurker in Slack communities as well. So I am obsessed with it and I look for hidden gems. I think it's a
Yes.
win. And then somebody said, "Oh, they're opening up this cohort for this." And like, "Oh, I'm in." So, yeah, so I hit the apply button and then went on the call. And that's how I got a formal VC Scout
Yeah.
badge program thing. But if they don't have it, like if certain VCs don't have that formal Scout program,
Hmm.
just be their scout anyway, because my one day they might, and you might be top
Yeah.
of mind. Um, yeah, so that's how I work it. I don't limit myself to just one VC. There's no NDA, there's no nothing, non-compete within
Hmm.
that world. Everybody deserves funding.
Hmm.
And this is their job. So why not?
Absolutely. And I have to say, I love what you mentioned about lurking because I think I mean, it's true. It's like one of the best things you can do, I feel like, in order to be tapped in with the tech ecosystem. It is really important to kind of like be online, see who's kind of like coming out of stealth and see kind of like the up and coming players. Like, I think it is important. And so being tapped into communities. Like shout out to OGC, we met through that community, but being tapped
Yeah.
into those online communities, I think exposes you to those opportunities and to people that can help get you to your next point.
Yes, for sure. And community is the way to go. Like it's a
Hmm.
proven point by now. You just
Totally.
have because they're genuine connections and people want the same thing in life. And we all just want to live happily, be able to pay our rent or our mortgage or whatnot, feed our families. So it's basic needs have to be met. And if people understand that, then there's no issue.
Yeah, 100%. And now, Kirsten, I'd love to hear what's coming up for you this next year as a recent graduate and someone who's building their
Ah,
business. Like, what is next for you? If there's anything exciting you're working on there, able to talk about.
yes. So watch out. I'm teaming up with a program that enables founders or even just specific community of people to leverage their human edge.
Ooh.
So I'm working with this great lady. We're doing events maybe after New York Tech Week, just
Hmm.
because. I'm also going to be attending the hackathon. So I also produce some hackathons in coordination with Tavili and Microsoft over the next week in New York. It's going to be a hackathon for founders in agentic commerce. So look out for that. I'll be posting that on my LinkedIn. And I'll be spinning up some more events over the next few months as I see fit. And yeah, might do some more networking. And you'll see me in those rooms, whether in San Francisco or New York, or maybe even Miami. I like to travel. So
Yeah, yeah, the world is your oyster, Kirsten.
yeah, it is. It is.
And now, one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is I always love to have them give a shout out to someone in tech that they're really feeling inspired by lately. So it could be a
Hmm.
founder, could be a VC, community builder, consultant. Anyone is fair game, but would love to hear who you're admiring.
Okay, so who I'm admiring is not a builder themselves, but is a thought leader, basically in AI. And I don't want to botch her last name, so I'm going to read perfectly um, from an email that I'm trying to pull up now. I want to botch her last name. I know her by her first name very well, but her name is Samantha Mulcahy. Oh my God, I hope I didn't botch the last name. She's an amazing thought leader. She does workshops in AI and she created this lovely community, Rewire Collective. And yeah, I just love the person. She's just amazing. She's a leader. She has been in the C-suite as well. Just been, an easygoing person. And
Mhm.
and I want to do a shout out for her. So look her up.
Love that. Great shout out.
Yeah.
Kirsten, this has been such a fun episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to share everything that you've been doing with your many hats that you wear so well. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to connect.
Yes, please. Just find me on LinkedIn, Kirsten Co, New York. So that's the search bar. And then you'll find me there. You'll find my photo there by the Brooklyn Bridge. So that's me.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure to include your LinkedIn in the show notes that our listeners can easily find you from there. Thank you so much
Yeah.
again
And
for
by the
coming.
way, one more thing. I'm
Yeah.
also contributing writer at Insider Monkey. It's like a hedge fund financial media company. I
Oh,
will
cool.
also write about founders. I'm going to start a series highlighting founders and new startups and pitting them against public companies.
Cool. Love it. Thanks for sharing that. Kirsten, this has been
Thank
such a good
you.
episode. Thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley.